The following review is intended for entertainment purposes and targeted for adult fans of the series.
That joke's gonna get old real fast as we review this show. Looks at it, puts it back in his pocket. That's gonna get old real fast too. Heroes, I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome, finally, to another Kamen Rider Dragon Knight episode review. It's only been about 2.5 years since I reviewed the 6th episode of Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, Kamen Rider Torque. I've always wanted to get back to this really strong series, but I just haven't had the opportunity. Until now. For those of you who are just checking back in on me and might be really confused right now, let me explain. I have entirely, completely finished my Power Rangers Cosmic Fury reviews, and that's really all we have for Power Rangers right now. It's going to be a solid couple of years until we have Power Rangers TV to review again. So, in deciding what content to make for this channel, I decided to start by finishing what I started. There are 34 more episodes of Dragon Knight to review, and this time, we don't have to worry about any hiatuses or stoppages. This show aired years ago, and there's no current Power Rangers TV series to interrupt it. As a reminder, there is no official American DVD release of Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. I am reviewing rips from the Japanese DVDs, which were endorsed by the show's starring actor, Stephen Ford. Seeing as it has been 29 months, a quick little recap of the show's premise might be in order, so we can jump right into the episode here. Kit Taylor, aged out of the Los Angeles foster care system, returned to his disappeared father's apartment and found a mysterious deck of cards with a dragon symbol on them, hearing his father talk to him through the deck. Meanwhile, people in LA are disappearing left and right, pulled into reflective surfaces by strange monsters. A man from the other side of the mirror, a world called Ventara, named Len fights these baddies as Kamen Rider Wing Knight. At first, he doesn't want Kit using the dragon deck, but eventually circumstances force their hand, and Kit becomes the titular character, Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. When last we saw our heroes, some doubt about Len had been introduced into Kit's mind by the devious Kamen Rider Torque, also known as Drew Lansing. Drew, with the help of the show's big baddie Xaviax, tricked Kit into believing that Len was the traitor that stole the decks of the Ventaran Kamen Riders. Meanwhile, investigative reporter Maya and her young assistant Trent snuck into the hospital and found all of the missing people, including Kit's father. Let's see how all of these moving pieces slide against each other as we take a look at the 7th episode of Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, Friend or Foe.
Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel.
Yeah, and make sure you got your notifications set up by hitting that little bell icon.
Right you. What he said was, you can consider checking us out on Patreon or Ko-fi at Orange Ranger Videos.
Following a nearly 2-minute recap of the past couple of episodes, honestly something the show is kind of infamous for, it only had 24-minute episodes and would regularly give up 2 or 3 minutes just keeping the kids up to date on the story. We get what basically amounts to a teaser. Drew brings Kit a drink, and seeing him bummed out says that he knows that it hurts when people you trust betray you. Len did it to them first, because he's pretending to be the Ventaran Kamen Rider.
Dude, spoilers!
In case you don't remember, this is not a spoiler. This is a rare down note for the show and something I remember mentioning in earlier reviews. But we've already seen Drew working for Xaviax. The storyline is written like there's a mystery that we don't know, but we do. So all that serves to do is make Kit look really gullible. Anyway, Maya arrives and tells Kit about his dad, and then the theme song, Fight the Fight, so let's ride. I do have to say, being able to film this show in Los Angeles gave them some gorgeous location shots. Len is sitting and, well, brooding. Seems he's starting to take a bit of a liking to Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, and he can't believe that Kit is being so naive. The audience is sitting here nodding in agreement. He hears the shimmer of the mirrors and sees an antelope monster in the reflection of a skybridge window. What comes next is a really over-dramatic sequence. Len takes out his deck, phrasing, that's going to get old real fast as we review the show, looks at it, puts it back in his pocket, puts on his sunglasses, we hear the passage through the mirror sound, and then Len approaches the monster untransformed. They even do this thing where he's walking up the steps, and after a few steps it fades to black and fades up, and it's a little more zoomed in, and he takes a few more steps, it fades down and it fades up. I understand what they were going for, it was just really overdone. And it turns out there are two monsters. I believe the other one is supposed to be a jackal. He calls out to the two monsters asking if they're looking for a fight. The two drop their weapons, which you might think is playing into the whole Len working for Xaviax thing, but then the jackal attacks Len, and Len fights it without transforming. It's a little goofy on its surface, but dramatically I have to say it makes a little bit of sense. Len is running hot right now, and maybe seeking to prove that he's his own man, even outside of being Wing Knight. This sequence is continuing to baffle me. Len actually knocks down the jackal monster. The antelope attacks and Len punches it, but then when Len raises a knee, the antelope stops. Len shakes his hand, assumes a different stance, and the two just start fighting again. The two monsters finally have the idea to attack together and start beating Len back, though even now he's getting some hits in. He's thrown onto some trash bags and then grabs a broomstick to use as a weapon. I will say, remember that the Kamen Riders need a reflective surface in order to transform, and the area that they're in doesn't really have any glass doors or any windows. There is a big fountain in the center, but it does have a lot of jets coming out of it, so not really good for reflective water.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
This sequence is still going. He actually blocks their bladed weapons with his broomstick before they finally just slice through the thing. And that just gives him smaller staff weapons to use. The jackal runs away, and it looks like the antelope is going to keep fighting, but then it stops, stands up straight, turns around, and walks away. Len tosses the sticks down onto the ground, turns, and walks away in the opposite direction.
What are you talking about?
Hey, Len, those two monsters serve the guy that, as far as you know, killed all of your friends and enslaved your world. Blow them up! Instead, he just says, "That felt good," which helps to reinforce his characterization as a Richard Cranium. That is to say it. Meanwhile, Kit, Maya, and Drew head to the hospital. Maya asks Kit about Drew, but he just goes, "Oh, that's Drew," and Maya accepts this. This is a bit of a conceit for time, which we'd have a lot more of if Len didn't feel like showing off just there. But Maya explains to Kit that they can't just walk in the front door of the emergency room because of the security, and then we just cut to them walking into the restricted wing. No disguises, no sneaking around.
That was easy.
Okay, I feel like I've been a little snarky thus far. Here's some good. Kit is overjoyed to see his father again, but then dismayed to find him non-responsive. As a little reminder, all of the people that have disappeared are actually in this wing of the hospital. The whole thing's being kept quiet so people don't panic, and they're able to function within life well enough. They can eat, they can watch TV, etc., but they have no energy, no drive, no personality. They're non-responsive. Drew explains that Xaviax does this, captures people and drains all of their life energy to power his machines. When it's completely drained, they're like Kit's father here, alive but basically lifeless. Maya asks if there's a cure, and Drew says there is. But Xaviax has it. To get the cure, they'll have to defeat him and Wing Knight. A doctor comes by and asks what the two of them are doing there. Two of them? Yep, Drew jumped into the metallic paper towel dispenser, slinking away. He goes to check in with Xaviax, and get ready for me to do this again. I'm probably going to do this almost every time that Xaviax is on screen. Xaviax is portrayed in human form by William O'Leary, and the performance borders on masterful. He congratulates Drew for all but delivering Kit into his grasp, but says that in a compliment that is also kind of dripping with warning, Drew may just be half as clever as he thinks he is. I'm guessing that Kit explained that this man is his father, and he was able to prove that as the two of them have been allowed to stay. He whines about the doctor not coming back and how nobody's telling him anything when Detective Grimes comes in. Okay, yeah, all the way back to the first episode of the show. Kit was accused of stealing something. He had a talk with Detective Grimes, who he apparently grew up knowing, etc. He basically says what I already have. Heck yeah, the government's keeping this quiet so that people don't panic about it. He's gotten them both, I guess, permission to come and visit Kit's father, but they can't tell anyone. Neither of them. I'm assuming Kit will be happy with that, just happy to be able to see his father, but we'll just see how happy the investigative reporter is with keeping all of this quiet. Honestly confusing, hard cut to Ryuki footage. The jackal and antelope run up the side of a building, and the colored lights that are shining on them indicates there might be a third monster. It's honestly confusing and questionably necessary. I believe the sequence is intended to establish that there's a third monster, but it does a really terrible job of doing that. Kit and Maya leave the hospital, and Maya asks why Drew said that they now have to defeat Wing Knight. Kit explains to her how Drew said that Len is working for Xaviax. She seems uncertain, and even he admits that it doesn't feel right, but Drew said he has the cure, so that's what he has to do for now. He hears a mirror shimmer and leaves. He rides the capsule bike into an episode of Ryuki that I've actually seen, fighting the golden antelope near a school. He uses sword vent, but is still clearly inexperienced, at best fighting to a standstill. The monster tosses his sword into the air, but he jumps onto the monster's staff, grabbing the sword and slashing down. He activates a new card, Strike Vent, which puts a dragon head kind of mounted glove thing on his right hand. He's able to use it to direct the dragon to launch a fireball at the monster, which destroys it. A ball of energy flies up into the air, which the dragon consumes as it leaves. Kit sees that Len is on top of a building nearby. Len is fighting another one of the monsters, but then Kit is tackled by the third, so I guess there were three, and doesn't really see that Len is fighting. This leads to another action sequence that's kind of unclear. Len gets knocked off of the building, landing near Kit. He sees Kit getting held up by one of the monsters that he's fighting, and uses his attack vent. Kit sees this, and reading his body language, seems to think that Len is about to attack him. He gets free and uses his attack vent, but both of them actually attack the monsters, knocking them together. They both final vent their monsters, 2 balls of energy, one for the dragon, one for the bat. Kit is a moron. Seriously, this is some big time himbo energy. He just watched Len defeat one of Zabiax's monsters. He turns to Len and says that he can't believe he works for Zabiax.
You have invented a new kind of stupid.
Len just tells Kit to believe whatever he wants. Following that is a scene that you might not think that I'd like, but actually I did. Maya is telling Trent and Lacey that they can't tell anyone about the sleepwalkers, or Kit won't go get to see his father anymore. Oh no, they might have to just sneak back into the hospital again. Also, she says that they probably shouldn't talk about the Kamen Riders either, since she can't help but feel it's connected. Lacey doesn't believe that any of it is real anyway. It does make her seem a little bit vapid, but what it's really doing is establishing that Lacey is not a loose end here. Nice. Kit follows Len back to LA and confronts him about his father. Len is sorry to hear about it, but when Kit starts talking about the cure that Torque mentioned, Len says there is no cure. Not anymore. There was a man that could have helped, but he's gone now. Kit is clearly saddened by this, but tries not to believe Len, saying he just doesn't want him fighting Zabiax. And now Len knows exactly who's responsible for turning Kit against him. He rides his motorcycle around Los Angeles and just so happens to find Drew, who flees into Ventara. Len transforms for some reason, but I'm not going to complain too loudly because I love Dragon Knight's transformation sequence. In Ventara, he's attacked by a Red Bull monster. How energetic. With Torque transformed and watching nearby. He loads a card. He loads cards into a slot in his gun, which I love, and shoots Len, knocking him back. His shoot vent card turns his little sidearm gun into a giant screw you bazooka railgun type thing. Wing Knight uses trick vent, which creates 2 illusion duplicates of him. However, he was a little too far away from Torque when he did this, so Torque is able to just shoot all 3 and hit him eventually. So, Len uses Nasty Vent, a sonic disruption from the bat, which allows him to get close enough to Drew so the two can talk. Okay, I'm kidding a little. The two are bantering as they're fighting. Len asks Drew what the price of selling out your own world is. Drew says that Zabiax is going to make him a king. And, as the last man on Earth, I'll get my pick of the ladies. I love the way that Len twists this around. You're going to be the last man on Earth to get a date? That's not sweet. That's pathetic. Drew uses his attack vent to summon his creature companion, a big standing green bull creature that comes up out of the ground. Basically, it only really serves to be the basis of his final vent, where he plugs his sidearm gun thing into the thing's back, and then it's basically... fire everything! Len runs away, still flung back, but clearly not taking the full brunt of the attack. We get a wide shot of this factory that they were fighting at, with a crater showing the full impact of the attack. The thing is, the crater is very badly superimposed over the footage. The sides of it are faded and you can see things behind them. There are some things that appear to clearly be really there and are actually damaged, but this might have been a different blown up factory, but yeah. Drew seems to think that this finished Len off, but I really have no idea why he would think that. We cut to Kit riding around on his motorcycle, seeming to flash back to conversations with Maya about this entire thing, his father guiding him to the cards and the dragon, and now not really knowing what to do or who to fight for. But apparently it didn't take him all that much longer to make up his mind. Back at his place, there's a knock on the door, and it's Drew. The whole confrontation about where Drew vanished to doesn't last long, as he just says that he was finishing something off, and Kit accepts this. In fact, he tells Drew that he has decided. If Drew will help him cure his father, he'll help him defeat Xaviax and Wing Knight. Kit says that he's just happy to have finally figured out who the good guys are, as Drew looks past him into a helmet visor where Xaviax stands nodding and then turns and walks away. I do have to sneak this in really quick. The episode that started with a nearly 2-minute recap of past episodes ends with a nearly 1-minute preview of the next episode. Though I have to admit, I do tend to prefer teases to recaps. Listen, it's been 2.5 years. Yeah, I had to look up the scoring system for this show. So, let's deal the cards. Episode 7, Friend or Foe. Pros: despite the undercutting, the deception tension still hangs strong. The mystery of the Sleepwalkers is genuinely tense, and the fights were unique and varied. Cons: the deception tension is still undercut. There are some confusing, hard-to-follow sequences, and not enough for everyone to do. The vibe of this episode is a strong episode in spite of itself. That feels like Friend or Foe gets 3.75 cards out of 5. I suppose it's a testament to the strength of the writing that this whole fooling Kit storyline is compelling despite the fact that the audience knows exactly what's going on. Drew makes a very charismatic and convincing con man. The plan, while a bit simple, has some good ideas to it. And I keep calling Kit out for being a himbo, but it's not impossible to see this working on a desperate and confused person. Kit still is a himbo, though. One mystery that the show isn't letting us in on from the very beginning is the Sleepwalkers, and that even plays into the whole deception arc, as Drew says there's a cure, but Len says that there isn't, although there was. Maybe the truth actually lies somewhere in the middle. And it's such a weird, unique ailment, especially for a kid's show, to be alive, but basically without personality. We got an untransformed fight against 2 monsters, 2 riders fighting 2 monsters, and 1 rider fighting another rider. This show loves variety, and something that Kamen Rider, this show, and the Japanese show gives you a lot of that you really don't get a ton of in Power Rangers and even Super Sentai are fights between transformed characters. Yes, there are exceptions. It's just pretty common in Kamen Rider, and it's fun.
I didn't mean to do the joke!
In the first pro, I said that Kit is still a himbo and Kit is still a himbo. The plan is good, but it's really simplistic and pretty easy to see through. I mean, Kit doesn't even ask Len why he destroyed one of Xaviax's monsters. How long of a con would this be for Len? He's been fighting against Xaviax's monsters for a long time, longer than Kit has been a rider. Wouldn't he just have attacked Kit when he became Dragon Knight? The action is exciting, but often cuts around too much or is hard to explain. 2 sequences come to mind. The first is that untransformed fight, which really, once again, just feels like another chance for Len's actor, Matt Mullins, to show off martial arts skills like he did before. It's really dumb and only explained in story as a chance for Len to blow off some steam against monsters that are kidnapping people. The other is that jumpy, stroby kind of sequence that established that there were 3 monsters. Doing that so badly that I didn't even realize that was what was going on at first. Last episode, Trent went with Maya to the hospital. This time, Kit did that, so Trent had even less to do. And worse than him is Lacey, who has 1 scene that establishes she's not going to tell anyone about all this because she doesn't believe it in the first place. I do remember that these characters get important things to do as the story goes on, but early on they have no reason to exist. Strong in spite of itself is not a sentiment I remember thinking very often about this show, but hey, some shows are dragged down by their circumstances, and some rise above them. This was still a strong, compelling episode, if not one of the show's best. Let's see if we're in for better by taking a peek at the 8th episode of Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, Kamen Rider Camo. Xaviax recruits a new rider with the promise of being the toughest man on 2 worlds. Meanwhile, a monster abducts Maya, leading all 4 riders into a confrontation. That is going to do it for the return of the Kamen Rider Dragon Knight episode reviews. Thank you, heroes, so much as always for watching. As I said at the start, I'm really excited to be getting back to this show and reviewing it because there are some good things in store. This was probably a pretty average episode of Dragon Knight, which was still pretty good, but I'm telling you, there are some great things coming down the road, so make sure you keep watching these reviews. Also, please make sure to head down below and hit that thumbs up button to let me know that you enjoyed this video, and while you're down there, leave a comment letting me know what you thought of this episode as well as my review of it. Until next time, heroes, may the power protect you. Whatever it was they did to sneak in this time. Lacey doesn't believe that or Kit won't go get to see I know this wasn't the best that Kamen Rider Dragon Knight has to offer, but just